The Weekly Warp Pipe.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Weekly Warp Pipe, a podcast dedicated to retro video games, 80s and 90s toys, and all things nostalgia. Now, this week, we're going to be jumping in the Warp Pipe and going back and taking a look at an epic battle. It's going to be Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis.
the most epic battle that didn't happen on a battlefield of all time.
Right. And this was also brought to you by let's see, we got Samuel Maris suggested it. How about a conversation about SNES versus Sega Genesis console war and perhaps games you preferred that were on both systems?
I like it.
That was a good topic. So thank you so much for your suggestion. We have a couple points to get to. Obviously, like you said, we're going to do games that were on both systems, and then maybe games we preferred that were only on one system or the other. I thought we could do a little history of it. I brought up both of the wiki documents on the systems. Maybe we could talk about commercials or advertising for each of the systems.
Yeah.
So it should be a pretty fun episode. And then, of course, we asked you guys what you thought as well. So we'll check out those comments a little bit later into the episode.
And I think to clarify just a little bit, I think some of these me and Russ are going to talk about like similar games on both. Like maybe they're not completely identical, but it's like Sega got this version and Super Nintendo kind of got that version, but they're kind of like the same. What's the word I'm looking for? Brand,
aesthetic, or
for the lack of a better word.
Fair enough. The branding. All right, let's see. What do we got here? Sega Genesis. We'll start off with some fun facts for Sega Genesis. Sega Genesis, also known as the Mega Drive outside of North America, is a 16-bit fourth generation home video console developed and sold by Sega. Let's see, it was released in 1988 in Japan, 89 in North America. In 1990, it was distributed as the Mega Drive by Virgin Mastertronic in Europe. Interesting enough.
So comes fast.
Designed by an R&D team supervised by Hideki Sato and Masami Ashikiwa. The Genesis was adapted from Sega's 16 arcade board, centered on a Motorola 6800 processor as the CPU. This is all jargon I don't really know. I know it plays games. And
question: a more important question: is there a definitive Sega Genesis that you prefer?
Oh, that is a good topic to bring up there, because we do have the 3 models of the Sega Genesis that came out. You have the original one, which is a little bit chunkier.
And it has a varied version of itself.
That's true. And then you have the Sega second one is more slim, sleek looking. And then the third one is even smaller.
Right.
On the slim fast diet and got even smaller.
Exactly.
So I usually have it set up with, I do have the Model 1, but the one that says, what does it say now? It says
high definition
graphics. Because I guess it's a better quality sound, I think, on that one too.
I'm not sure. I think you're right. But for all of those of you listening, that is the only answer. That is the definitive model. And I don't have a Genesis. That's not true. I have a Model 2, which I will get rid of eventually. But when I do repurchase a Genesis at some point, it will be the high definition graphics model. Nice. It's the best one. It's the raddest. It's the most in your face.
Right. I do like it does have the little volume slider button.
And I like the white power button's kind of rad, right? Or is it the reset button I'm thinking of?
No, the reset, I think the reset is that. And the power button's black.
Something about that big circle on top. I don't know. It's a very neat looking system.
Yeah, definitely unique. The Model 2 probably is what most people know. That's what's let's see if we bring this up again here.
It's the second picture there.
Yeah. The first one is, I want to say, is a Mega Drive because it just says 16-bit.
That is the Mega Drive, yes.
Yeah,
But the shell is in essence the same.
The same, yeah. It would say high definition graphics across the top over here. Oh, so this one had a blue reset button,
yeah,
instead of the white. Let's see, what else did we see here? Lifespan, it says it was 1988 to 1997.
Dang, almost 10 years.
Units sold, Sega sold 30.75 million. Any other fun facts here? Let's see. They can spew out. Definitely the sound is something different because it has a different sound for sure than the Super Nintendo.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's more like gritty, maybe. How would you describe it?
Twangy.
It is a
high
bit
end,
twangier.
more high end for sure. It says it's using a Yamaha YM2612 chip, so you can see it right there, and a Texas Instrument SN76489. So yeah,
That's
it's using
funny.
that there. And one thing is pretty neat is it does have you could play Master System games on the Sega Genesis via the Master System adapter that would plug in, and then you could plug your Master System games in there. So that was kind of a one up over. There was nothing like that for the Super Nintendo.
Yep.
So I would say like 1 point to Sega for that.
Well, in all fairness, I would say the majority of homes had an NES, so they probably already had that system to play NES games on, whereas a majority of people may not have had a Master System who ended up buying the Genesis, and they're like, oh, I can go back and play these on it too. So maybe they thought maybe that would be a way to sell some more of the old Master System games.
Because the way I almost looked at it was, okay, you want the Super Nintendo, you got to get rid of your NES type thing.
Which is what I had to do.
The parents are like, you can only have one game system, so all right, sell this one, and then you get the newer Nintendo.
That was what I did.
I guess if they didn't, then okay. Yeah, I myself will say I never had a Master System.
Me either.
And I played very few games on it.
So. I only knew one person that had it, and I remember when I played it, I was like, it was like I had the attitude of like, what is this wannabe Nintendo?
Right.
Because at that point, I'd never heard of Sega.
Let's see. Now we'll do some Super Nintendo facts. We can go with that. All right. We got the Super Nintendo or the Super Famicom. Let's see. 1991. It came out in North America August 23rd, 1991. And its lifespan was 1990 to 2005.
Wow.
So this one had 15 years lifespan. Average price was $200. And it sold worldwide 49.10 million units. In North America only, it sold 23 million units. And let's see, the sound, they were using a Nintendo SMP chip. So only one chip there. I don't really know chip technology. Certainly sounds different than Sega. And let's see, what else we got here? In South Korea, it was called the Super Comboy.
Weird.
That's weird. That's a little weird fact.
That is weird. What do you think about the design of the Super NES?
Right. So you're looking here. It's definitely so for North America, you got that gray and purple design, whereas the Famicom has the gray still, but they chose to use 4 colors.
Yeah.
For like the buttons and then a little mimicking that on the console itself.
Yep.
So certainly I would say they took a risk putting the purple. I don't know, because then you're like, purple, what is this? That's a girl's color.
What's funny is you would think that, but I just remember seeing it and thinking it looked really cool looking. Like,
okay.
It just looked so different from the NES. And the fact that it top loaded, even though I know the Genesis top loaded, I don't know, just the way the games looked. Like, I wish I could go back to like 1992 when I was all hyped about it and and just remember how I felt about seeing it, because it seemed just so different. Like everything about it did seem super. You know what I mean? Like this isn't just a Nintendo. This is a Super Nintendo.
Right.
Like
Well, again, of course, goes to the marketing.
And I think the
we
name
can get into.
really was just a perfect name. It was everything the Nintendo was, but better. It was like Superman Nintendo. I don't know. When did you get a Super Nintendo?
Yeah.
Do you remember when roughly you got it?
I don't, not exactly.
I mean, mine.
Super Mario World was out, so fairly around launch time. But
do you think you got it in 91?
Either 91 or 92.
I got mine November of 92, so it had already been out about a year and a half.
Okay.
But what I think's weird about that is I don't really remember knowing much about the Super Nintendo or really hearing about it until like the fall of 92 is when I started feeling like I was seeing stuff about it. So it's hard for me to believe that like I didn't see commercials for it from August of 91 all the way to August. I started to remember seeing stuff like August, September of 92, because my friend TJ got it for his birthday, which is late September. And I remember him getting it and just like opening it up and putting Mario World in and playing it and just being like so enthralled with everything about it. Like the controller had more buttons and the graphics looked so much better and the console just looked interesting. You know, it was just, like I said, it was like everything NES was except Super.
Right. Absolutely. And yeah, again, maybe with that color scheme that they chose, it was a little bit loud, essentially.
Yeah.
Than the Sega being all black and like sleek. So maybe again, Nintendo always going towards the family friendly stuff and like all ages.
Yeah.
So you're like people are more excited for that. And then maybe the late teenagers were geared towards with the Sega Genesis, you know, the 18, 19-year-olds like, oh, this is the more adult console.
I would love to hear like an interview with whoever did the design choice for the American version to see why did they even bother to change the looks of the Super Famicom. Like, you know,
right.
If they wanted it gray and purple, why didn't they just do like a palette swap of the original? Like, but they went ahead and like made a completely different design, which is interesting.
If we take a quick look back here, you can see like the shell's completely different. Instead of having the two big reset buttons over here, you have more of a sleek design.
And you would think that would cost more money to have two different versions. You know what I mean? Like that's two different prototypes you'd have to have made.
Right.
And then the games have to have different shells, you know, because the Famicom ones have more of a rounded front, where the NES ones are just more like blocky.
True.
I don't know. Just
an observation.
Just observations here.
So yeah, that's a little bit quick backstory on both systems. I myself had the Super Nintendo growing up. I ended up going to a friend's house to play the Sega Genesis, so I didn't get one till probably a little while after.
I knew a few kids that had both, and I always assumed they were rich.
Maybe they didn't have a Nintendo. Maybe they got a Sega first.
No, they all had Nintendos everything. Too. I remember
they had everything.
Rich, those rich kids.
Blast.
How'd they do it?
So we got a bunch of games that were on both systems. Similar games. I guess we could start off with on Super Nintendo. We had Turtles in Time.
That's right.
Sega Genesis was Hyperstone Heist.
Very similar games, obviously not exactly the same.
Right.
And I've played both. I've obviously played Turtles in Time way more. And I think I prefer Turtles in Time more, even though I have heard people say the opposite.
And now, like, if you got in the Cowabunga collection, perfect example to be able to play all the Turtle games. So they have both of them on there. And I've done a few live streams with Turtles in Time, and I myself, I almost feel like Hyperstone Heist is the better one.
You think so?
Mainly because my main gripe is the buttons. You have less buttons on Sega, yet I felt they did it better. Super Nintendo, you have way more buttons, and all you need is like attack and jump, right? But on
Yeah.
Super Nintendo, you have to double tap forward to get their like running animation.
Okay.
Whereas on Sega, it was just hit the C button and they start running, which was way
Oh,
easier to perform. Like you can run and then do a slide move with the
okay.
turtles. And it was so hard to get it going on Super Nintendo because you're like double tapping, and then you get hit because you're just trying to tap. And I'm like, this is so frustrating. Like they had plenty of buttons that could have been R, could have been L. Like,
Right.
what the heck?
Yeah, that is interesting. Okay. Well, it could just be my inexperience of playing Hyperstone Heist. I did own it for a while. I had a Sega Genesis and probably about 50 games for a hot minute before I sold them to get my NES Sharp TV. But if I ever come across it again, I'll give it a whirl. Maybe I need that Turtles in Time collection, or what is it called? Cowabunga collection.
Yeah, the Cowabunga.
It's a pretty
collection.
reasonable price now, I think, too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you can get it for like $20 or something. Maybe even less on like digital.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. Maybe it is better. Now, am I mistaken in saying, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, or maybe you happen to know, Russ? Is Hyperstone Heist not slightly shorter of a game?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is shorter.
Yeah, I feel like
because I played through both of them and I felt like it went quicker with Hyperstone Heist.
Maybe it was just easier because the buttons were laid out better.
Could have been.
I don't know. Let us know in the comments below if you know, but I always thought Turtles in Time was a bit longer.
Yeah. And then you want to take the next one?
Sure. So we have Super Castlevania 4 versus Bloodlines. Completely different games, but both that Castlevania property.
Right, same franchise.
Yep.
Certainly takes you in different directions. And even in if you guys of course watch the Angry Video Game Nerd, like he said, he didn't even know this Castlevania Bloodlines existed back in the day.
And that may have been the case for many of us.
Right. And again, it could come down to marketing, advertising, whether it was in Kmart or Toys R Us magazine ad. But again, too, I almost think it's on Sega, geared towards those maybe later teens, kids.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a little bit more violent. It's like, all right, so maybe only the 18, 19-year-olds are buying this game, or even 20-year-olds. And we're like, Super Mario World, like, oh, Super Castlevania. Sure, I'll get this one.
Yeah. So it's interesting. When I first played Super Castlevania, I was such a fan of the original. I did not like it. I don't know. I was so obsessed with the NES one. Because now, when I played these two games, it was when I started collecting. I never played either of them as a kid. But eventually, Super Castlevania became my favorite game ever. And I will say that I find it to be much easier than Bloodlines. I've never beaten Bloodlines, sadly, but I've beaten Super Castlevania more times than I can say. I find it much harder. I do think the animation is a little bit weirder on Bloodlines, especially the way they walk upstairs looks really silly.
Okay.
But that's just an observation. That doesn't really change the gameplay. I think I prefer Super Castlevania 4 more aesthetically. Okay. And it's probably also because I'm better at it, so it's more enjoyable.
Right. Maybe
spend more time with it. I don't think Bloodlines is a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. I just need to spend more time playing it.
Right. And again, this is going to come down to personal preference.
Pretty much.
Essentially, you have Bloodlines where you have two characters you can choose from.
That's a good point.
Which you can be, now if I can remember,
Eric Lecard and John Morris.
John Morris has the whip, and then Eric Lecard ends up getting a like trident spear, which was very unique. You're like, oh, like, okay, like Castlevania, but I'm not using a whip.
Right.
And they had like special ability where if you hold down, he like charges up and does this like upward attack. And
he almost uses like a pole vault.
Right. And you can get to higher places. And then certain areas, if you have the whip, you can use it to like swing across. So it had almost like different paths you can take depending on which character you had. Super unique graphics, the stage with the water obviously everyone's going to talk about. You get to the stage and it's basically you're on some platforms and there's water below it, and the water's rising and lowering, and it's
And
an
you can see
exact
your
mirror.
reflection.
Right.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
pretty
very
wild.
trippy. And you're like, whoa, what are these graphics? Like,
Yeah.
Super cool. I got, like Jay said, I got it later in the lifespan, maybe like, well, now maybe 10 years ago I picked it up and played it, and super fun. Super Castlevania. I don't think I played it when it originally came out.
I didn't
I don't think I ever picked it up either. But like you said, if you enjoyed that first NES Castlevania, it's almost like a remake ish of that. Like even going through some of the levels, you're like, oh, you're fighting the bat or whatever.
This is crazy, and I'm going to get a lot of hate in the comments below, but I remember telling my friend Todd that I didn't like the music in Super Castlevania 4. Now it's my favorite soundtrack of like any video game, but like I must have been like just really a fanboy of the original. I basically just wanted the original completely remade.
You wanted the
16-bit.
8-bit there.
I
Maybe
wanted
jazzed
the
up a little
8-bit
bit.
and 16-bit, but I wanted it identical, same level, same design, same music.
Mhm.
So once I finally got used to Super Castlevania, I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like I really like the one level where you're like in this cave and you're fighting these stone monsters and the music's kind of tranquil. I don't know. It just has like the dopest music. If I could go back to myself when I said I didn't like it, I would slap myself in the face like this.
Nice.
J-Love 81 style.
Well, I will say these are pitted pretty even, I would say.
I would say that's once again preference.
They both have plenty of strengths and weaknesses. Definitely both worth checking out for sure. This next one I have on my list is kind of unique, which some might not know, but you have on Sega Genesis Rocket Knight Adventures, but then on Super Nintendo it was called Sparkster.
Was it the same game?
No. So it's like different gameplay and everything. I think it's Sparkster supposed to be a sequel. It's you're both playing as the possum. Okay. But different style game for each of them. Rocket Knight Adventure, you still have, a rocket in your possum in both games. The possum name is Sparkster, so that's why he was called
he
that.
is the same.
I streamed both of them and beat both of them. Yeah, there's Sparkster. I think it's a pretty expensive game too, but you could clearly see he has his blue suit on and sword and rocket backpack, and you're like, that's Rocket Knight.
Apparently, it was on the Genesis too, though. You see that?
Oh, okay. So, but Super Nintendo never got Rocket Knight Adventures.
Right.
They only got Sparkster.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's a fun like platformer style game. Cool mechanic. You have the jetpack, which you can charge up, and then he kind of like goes like across the screen, like you're hitting the screen, then hitting down, like so you
He's
choose
like bouncing.
your angles. Yeah. So I mean, it was all that era of you have all the mascots coming out. So you wanted to get some type of you got Sonic coming out, Bubsy, other ones.
Yeah.
Cool spot.
Awesome,
I don't know.
Awesome Possum. Wasn't there one called Awesome Possum?
Wouldn't this be Awesome Possum? Because he's a possum. Rocket Knight. Because you can hang from trees with your tail.
Pretty sure that was an Awesome Possum, but maybe I'm crazy.
Who knows? So that was certainly one. I myself preferred the Rocket Knight Adventure game over the Sparkster game. Yeah, just the art style and the graphics look a little bit better on the Genesis. Again, with the Super Nintendo, it's like more of that cutesy, cartoony look.
Gotcha.
But pretty neat one. So definitely check that out.
Gotcha.
What else we got? You got any lists?
So as a hockey fan, and congratulations to the Las Vegas Golden Knights who just won the Stanley Cup last night. NHL 94 was on the NES and the Sega Genesis. Sorry, Super NES and Sega Genesis. And it was a sports game by EA. And if I'm being honest, Genesis did it a little better. You could go a little bit faster. It was a little bit more sleeker. and as far as like how you can move the puck.
Mhm.
But the exact same game, different consoles. And
Right.
my buddy TJ had it, and we used to play it at his house. And I ended up getting it for the Super NES eventually, but it's just a little bit better on the
Better in the
Genesis.
Genesis. And I feel like that's one of the games that people like to like ROM hack or mod it to make it with a updated roster, so you
Yeah.
can get like 2023 NHL hockey,
Yep.
but it's on Sega Genesis with like just the names changed and stats or whatever.
That's sick.
So yeah, certainly fun. Let's see. I don't think we have any other sports games on here.
No.
We can do here. This is a super controversial one. I added kind of last minute, but Mortal Kombat was on both systems.
That's right.
That came out, and of course, Sega Genesis. You got the blood.
ABACABB. Wasn't that it?
I maybe
2-1-2 down up for the Game Gear.
But yeah, there was no blood in the Super Nintendo version.
Not for the first one.
They were doing like sweat or something, right? It was like white, I want to say.
Yep.
I think it was a color, plasma. The downside, I will say, with if you got it on the Sega Genesis, you had to get a 6-button controller if you're going to play it. Because if you're using a 3-button controller, you had to hit start to change from punch to kick.
Yeah, that was pretty annoying.
Super annoying to go back and forth. So I'm like, just get yourself the 6-button and save some time. Other than that, if you had Super Nintendo, you had all the buttons. There's just getting used to. I would always do low punch and high punch, and then the blocks would be like R and L,
right?
Because you're up top here, and then you got your 4 buttons with all your kicks and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, you were kind of just a victim to what system you had. You know, all the Sega kids could be like, "Nah, we got blood. You guys don't. You're lame." I always hated that.
You're like, blast! I should have got a Sega.
Freaking Genesis.
Genesis does what Nintendo don't.
They really did that time. And then Nintendo was like, you know what? For Mortal Kombat 2, let's give them what they want. Let's give the people what they're asking for.
Right. So it took a little bit. And also, that side note, that ended up getting the ratings for the video games. So you would have, like NC-17 or whatever. So you can't buy a game unless you're with your parent.
That's it.
This has the blood and gore. Sorry.
Yep. Here's one for you, Russ. As a kid in the early 90s, what cartoon was cooler than X-Men? And Sega got their X-Men game, which had some of the coolest intro music ever. It's like, like
that twangy sound.
And it had freaking, and it had like the dopest like sprite animations of like Wolverine, Gambit, Cyclops, Nightcrawler, and was Beast an option?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And then NES, or sorry, I keep saying NES. I mean to say Super NES. Super Nintendo got Spider-Man X-Men Arcade's Revenge, which doesn't look anywhere near as cool as the Sega version. Now, I will say the Sega version that's a really tough game. I find that game to be very hard. Especially
I never got
even that first jungle game, first jungle scene. You see the little that sounds so rad, right?
Now, this was certainly one of the games I played at my neighbor's house. He had this game. I went over there to play X-Men because obviously we loved watching the cartoon.
Yeah.
Couldn't get anywhere in this game.
I talked my buddy into giving me the poster out of his
instruction manual or whatever.
Yeah, it was like a poster came with it.
Yes.
I slipped that poster into my Gambit comic book because I had the Gambit comics because Gambit was my favorite. Mm-hmm. And I recently sold, well, I won't say recently, when I was trading for some NES games a couple years ago, I sold all my Gambit comic books to Second Charles. And I got home and I remembered I left that poster, and then I was like, no, they got my poster too. So I no longer have the cool X-Men poster from the game.
Blast.
But later later NES or Super NES did get X-Men Mutant Apocalypse, which was more similar to the Sega version, and I felt redeemed. But Spider-Man X-Men Arcade's Revenge game was so between
that one stunk. So the Mutant Apocalypse one,
it did way better, looked way cooler, but it came out much later. You had to wait.
Yeah, so this is more of a.
So at first you just had those two to choose from, and I thought Sega definitely won that.
Right. I mean, it just looks like a straight beat 'em up game. You could choose who you want.
Yeah.
The first one was what, Spider-Man though?
Spider-Man X-Men Arcade's Revenge. Look that up. It looks whack compared to this and the Genesis.
So this was what it was competing against with.
Yeah, at the time. See, that says 92. The other one said 94. So you had to wait 2. See, look how goofy that looks. Oh, look at Spider-Man.
It almost looks like an NES game. It could have been an NES game.
Yeah, almost. It almost looks like the Captain America.
Yeah.
Like scroll forward a little bit more and see if you can see one of the other characters.
Oh, there's Wolverine.
See, like I guess it doesn't look terrible, but what's he? He looks like he's fighting something from a Batman game.
Right. I'd say the graphics are a little bit
just not as cool, right?
We're not as cool, definitely. So I would say Sega definitely takes the win for the X-Men game for sure.
Yeah. Yep. I got one or two more. You got any more?
Yeah, I did throw this one on there. We got shout out to Gary from Rock Solid Productions. Earthworm Jim.
Yeah.
Earthworm Jim was on Sega and Super Nintendo.
Who did it better?
I feel the Super Nintendo did.
Ooh, what does Gary feel?
I'm not sure. Maybe he prefers the what else did it come out on? Sega Saturn?
Did it come out on Saturn?
I think it did
as
well. Yeah, I feel with the that jogged my memory of another one. But again, I kind of prefer almost the soundtrack more on the Super Nintendo.
Gotcha.
Than that. And probably the button layout of everything. Rather than, most people, again, when you're playing the Sega, they probably had the 3 button and it probably wasn't as comfortable with that game there. But yeah, I really enjoyed Earthworm Jim, and I just happened to get it for Super Nintendo, so I definitely spent more time with that version. But
so I have another one. Now these are not the same property or franchise, but I feel like they're compatible enough to compare.
Oh, okay.
Super NES got Final Fight.
Yeah.
Sega Genesis got Streets of Rage.
That's okay. Yep. So your classic beat 'em up style game.
Right.
Wait. Do I have
ooh, look at that. We know what team you're playing for.
Forgot I had my Streets of Rage hat on.
So I had Final Fight growing up, played it in the arcade, bought it for my birthday in 1993, had it. But my buddy TJ had Streets of Rage, and I think Streets of Rage might actually be the better game for a couple reasons.
Okay.
I feel like it's a little bit faster, and you can play 2-player, whereas in Final Fight you could not.
Yeah, and with a beat 'em up game like that, that's like
couch co-op, perfect.
You had it in the arcade, right? So they're trying to bring that home to you, and if you're lacking that 2-player, you're like, I gotta watch you play and then wait my turn and then play again.
And they didn't even put Guy in it.
Right.
They had to fix that with another edition that I think didn't have Cody in it.
I think it was just Guy. I think it was just Final Fight Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Streets of Rage probably wins that one there. And there's a ton of ROM hacks too that I've played where they put like the Ninja Turtles in Street Fighter, which was super fun.
That's cool.
But I can see that, like you're saying, it's more quicker, upbeat, and 2-player is definitely where it's at.
Maybe a little bit better music too, possibly. So I thought of one more, and I have one more on my list.
Okay.
So as a kid, I grew up with the Super Scope 6, but Sega also had the Menacer. Not the same game, but once again, that kind of dueling,
same peripheral of a light gun cannon bazooka.
Yeah. Now one of the selling points of the Minister was you could take it apart and make it all kind of funky ways, you know.
Okay.
Super Scope, you pretty much had to hold it on your shoulder like a bazooka.
Right, and that was the only way. So with the Minister, it's like, oh, maybe you want it to be like more like a handgun, assault rifle.
Well, I feel like I remember in the commercial, like the kid like rolls across the floor and like aims at the TV and pulls the trigger and like tries to make it seem more like you can kind of bounce around your room. You know, that you don't have to just stand there with the big Super Scope 6, you know.
We could pull up I got a commercial.
Yeah, I'd like to see this because I want to see if my memory's playing tricks on me or if the kid actually rolls across the floor.
So Sega Minister ad 1992.
The Minister in my hands. I'm not afraid of scuzzy criminals. Hairy bugs. Enemy tanks. Slimy aliens. Nothing.
Oh, there it goes.
There it is.
Give your Aunt Bertha a big kiss. Well, almost nothing.
The Sega Menacer with 6 different games and 4 ways to play. Genesis system sold separately, batteries not included.
And it shows it broke it down there, so you could you have like this portion up here with like a scope and stuff.
So it's like
And
a
then-
handgun or a
And then you
handgun
got
with a
your
scope,
little
or more bazooka-like.
arm guard. Yeah. I never had this growing up, the Minister.
Yeah.
I don't think I even got the Super Scope either. I've seen the commercials and stuff and thought it was a cool concept because I played the light gun games on NES, but having it by myself. And again, you had to it shows the Minister, you get like a little device that goes on your TV so you could track it. And the Super Scope had the same thing, similar.
This is my original Super Scope that I had when I was a kid.
Nice.
Yep. Jay's original Super Scope. Still got it. And the box, too, somehow stuck with me all these years.
And fun fact, if you guys don't know, those were repurposed in the Super Mario Brothers movie in the 90s. They were the de-evolution guns.
Yep.
I mean, we have to watch the Super Scope commercial, I guess, too, right?
We should.
Just to see what the competition
compare and
was.
contrast.
Super Scope. Let's see here.
I'm actually going to say Super Scope won this.
You think? Yeah.
I think so.
Let's see. Here we go. Super Scope 6 commercial.
You're looking at the next breakthrough for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Introducing Super Scope 6. Remote-powered and laser-accurate. Precise to a single television pixel. It comes with 6 great games, and it's yours for under $60, all of which gets you into the game. Like never before. Super Scope 6, only for Super Nintendo. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
That's right, baby.
Love it.
Now, I will say one thing that's cool is, or unique, I guess. I think both companies tried to give you like 6 mini games.
Right, because this way you have a variety rather than you're buying one game and you get tired of that very quickly. You're like, all right, well, here's like a launch of what it can do, a bunch of games, and then you can get more games added on after that.
Kind of reminds me of Wii Sports in that aspect where you get multiple things on one cart.
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. You're getting these games kind of showcasing what the peripheral can do, and then hopefully third-party companies will then make extra titles.
They're like
that.
they're like tech demos, basically.
Right.
Like there was one called Blastress, and all it was Tetris, and you turned the cubes by shooting them.
Oh, okay.
And then there was Mole Patrol where you kill the moles as they pop up. There was like Missile something where you shoot the missiles that you're trying to intercept them.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
I never played. I know a lot of people ended up when I worked at the game store would pick it up, but they have Yoshi Safari, and I'm like, that's a Super Scope game. So I'm like, you need a Super Scope to play that. So I don't know if it was like, is it like Pokemon Go where like things are popping out in the Safari and you're shooting them?
Maybe. I always wanted Metal Combat.
Right.
Where you shoot the robots. I got it now, so
nice.
I need to bust out the old Super Scope and play it.
As for commercial wise, who do you think took the cake on the I do like the Sega one where it's all like in your face and he's like hiding behind the fishbowl, rolling around.
I mean, the Sega, I mean, because of its versatility and the size, I think is a bit better. It shows him hiding behind the couch, rolling across the floor. You know, it makes him look like he's moving around his living room, attacking stuff, you know.
Right.
In all honesty, you probably were just as stationary as you had to be with Super Scope 6. But so I think as far as marketing goes, as per usual, Sega won that one.
Sega.
But I think the Super Scope's a better gun. But I think those parts that came apart,
You're saying like accuracy wise.
I don't know about accuracy. I'm sure at the time they were both equally as accurate, but the Super Scope 6 is more sturdy than the Menacer. I got a Menacer a couple of years ago at a yard sale, and it was broke when I got it.
Right, that's what you get prone to, where okay, you have all these pieces that attach off, and you want to, like the commercial, you're moving around, or I mean, heck, you probably even bring this gun outside when you're playing war with your friends.
Possibly,
you're like, I'm going to use this gun, and so it probably seen some damage. And if it's not a solid piece like that Super Scope, it's gonna get some damage. I mean, with the Super Scope, most people probably lost the eyepiece because it was detachable.
Yeah, it was that way. I think they made it so if you're left or right handed, you could put it on, you know, whatever.
Sounds good. We got some comments from you guys, and we do have a phone call as well, which we can get to if you guys want. Let's see, you can give us a call, 949-682-9277. Leave us a message. You can tell us about topics you want to hear. I don't know how much you like us, how much you hate us.
Yeah. How cool our backgrounds are.
Right.
Is that Stimpy going to come alive and kill Russ one day? I don't know.
We shall see. Here's the phone call. Let's see. Oh, I got to do my little thing here. We got a caller.
I keep dreaming about my dream phone.
It's for you.
Hey, Russ, Jay. This is Michael Bennett. I am also known as Scruffy GIF on Instagram.
Nice.
I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for just being you guys. I know it's not easy. We're all, you know, pushing 42. All three of us. We're both all three born in 81.
That's it.
And you know, it's nice to know that there are two other guys the same age, interested in the same stuff, talking about the same stuff, living the life that you guys live, and I appreciate that so very much. I'm a little late on answering this question, but, you know, I
That's all right.
just heard it not too long ago. My 5 retro video games for a desert island would definitely have to be Blaster Master for the NES,
That's a good one.
Dark Alliance, Dungeons and Dragons, Dark Alliance.
Okay.
1 and 2 would be the third one. I would also have to go with Toxic Crusader. I've never played it, but I've heard it's a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to picking that one up. And, of course, for me, it has to be Godzilla for the NES. Hopefully that works for you guys. And, you know, just thank you again for what you do and, you know, sharing some of my ideas with the crowd. And just keep on rolling, guys. I keep on listening. Thanks.
No, man, that's amazing. Thank you for calling. Like, I wish everybody called. Why don't more people call like that? That's so awesome.
Dude, yeah, much appreciated tuning in. And yeah, he's always super interactive with like all the posts and everything. So dude, we appreciate you. Yeah, we're out here just reminiscent of the past, how we're growing up, talking about the cool stuff in the 80s and 90s.
We're just big kids, aren't we, Russ?
Now, I'm curious, he did say Toxic Crusaders. Did he mean there's one on the NES, right? Or was he talking about like the new one coming out?
Oh,
he
said, I didn't even know.
He's like, I haven't played it yet, and there's a new one coming out.
That's funny. You thought of NES. My mind went straight to Genesis. I forgot.
It could be. Because, yeah, the new one's put out by, what the heck is it now? Retroware.
Okay.
Is putting that out, which I played it at PAX, and it's basically developed by the same people that did the Shredder's Revenge, like Ninja Turtles game. And it was like awesome. We had a great time playing it. So super stoked to play that one. If it's one of the earlier ones, then sure, maybe it's pretty cool.
and I feel sad as the NES addict that the NES game wasn't my first thought. And I also just realized it's not in my collection. So maybe I'll have to do something about that.
Oh, nice. Yep, gotta add those there.
That's it.
So we did ask you guys. We posted the question, and if you guys are listening to the podcast, I usually end up posting either Tuesday night or Wednesdays what we're talking about on the podcast. So if you want to like comment or tune in, that's when to search for it. Unfortunately, the podcast airs on Saturdays, but we record on Wednesday, and we usually don't know our topic till like the day before.
We're slackers. What do you want?
Well, those slackers. All right.
What did you say? What did you say?
Springfield, let's hear from you.
Sweet. So we'll jump over to we got Instagram, YouTube, and our Facebook page. And we had various people comment on those. So we'll just go, I think Facebook, I think there was one on there. We got Matthew Durkin said, the SNES and Genesis are two of my favorite consoles ever. And along with the NES are mainly what I collect for. I remember going back and forth about which console I wanted to ask for my 9th birthday and probably telling my parents I changed my mind at least a dozen times
I feel you on that.
in the months leading up to it. In the end, I got an SNES and a copy of Street Fighter 2, and it's still one of the best gifts I can remember getting. About 3 years later, I found out the Sega channel existed, which seemed like the coolest thing I've ever heard of as a kid, and bought a used Genesis with the money I saved up by delivering newspapers.
Working hard. I like it.
With it, I was able to check out a bunch of games I never played, like Comic Zone, X-Men, Shinobi, Doom Troopers, and Vector Man. 31 years after that birthday console conundrum, and I can still say which console is the, I still can't say which console is the best.
It's hard, man. It's a tough, I think we
For
just
sure.
defended the one we had as a kid, but as adults with expendable money, we can buy both, and it's tough to say.
Right. And I like how you said that, like we defended the one we had. So you go to school, you be in the the playground, and if you're like, no, Sega's better than Nintendo, because well, my Super Nintendo's better because we got this.
That's right.
Let's see. All right. We got Instagram as well.
I love all these comments, guys. I really the phone calls, the comments. It makes it so much more fun when you guys interact.
All right, so we posted on there, and we just had Turbo Vision Official,
I like that name.
and he gave us some games that he enjoyed for SNES: Sky Blazer, Soul Blazer, Sunset Riders, and Mega Man X.
Mega Man X. Yeah.
Now I played Sunset Riders and Mega Man X. I can't say I played the other two.
Me either.
I want to say maybe one's a shooter, but I can't be sure. So
Soul Blazer sounds more familiar than Sky Blazer to me.
Yeah.
I feel like I can at least visualize the cover.
Fair enough. Let's see. And then we had it's on the community tab. If you guys don't know, on YouTube, there's a community tab. You can post like polls, pictures, and all that. So we posted on there and ended up asking you guys, Super Nintendo versus Sega, tell us some stories. We got 4 comments.
Oh, yeah.
We got Bloody Bones said, I'm a Sega kid. I didn't get an SNES until around the time I got my PS1, which I still have. Mortal Kombat, all of them. MK3 has a special place in my heart, though. Revenge of Shinobi, all the Sonic games, including Sonic Spinball. The Streets of Rage games. Lion King is a beast of a game, pun intended. Russ needs to play through of it. Oh, yeah, I'll have to do a playthrough of it. I never beat the Lion King. I have beaten Aladdin. It says Aladdin, Jungle Book, and many more.
Aladdin on the Genesis.
That's another one.
That Aladdin on Genesis wins
versus Aladdin on Super Nintendo.
In my opinion,
you get a sword, or you could throw apples.
Or you can throw apples. What's cooler?
And bounce off people's heads.
Yep, like Mario.
Nice.
With a sword.
That was a good one. What else we got? Colby says, I was a Nintendo kid for sure and got the Super Nintendo the Christmas season it first came out. I remember delving into Super Mario World and Gradius 3.
Oh, yeah.
And just being floored with the graphics and pixels because, hey, this was quite a leap from the NES, right?
It was.
Later in the lifespan of the SNES, some of my favorite titles would include Donkey Kong Country, TMNT Turtles in Time, Doom, Super Mario Kart, and in my opinion, one of the most underrated and hidden gems
Oh, what does it say?
on the
Read more.
system. Oh, Pocky and Rocky.
Okay.
Getting the Super Nintendo also was favorable for me because my best friend Timmy D, who had a Sega Genesis, lived just down the street. So I'd often ride my bike over and play Sonic and Company as much as one could. So in a way, I felt like I had the best of both worlds, since he would ride his bike to my house and get a shot saving the princess and Mario and getting his first taste of Donkey Kong Country.
Nice.
I didn't get a Sega Genesis of my own until well after its launch and into its lifespan, as well as a significant price drop. I'd say around $95. I think I paid $39.95 for a used one from our local electronics boutique game.
Oh man, I miss those days.
It was packaged in with the OG Sonic the Hedgehog. It was at this time I simply wanted the opportunity to try to play some of those games I used to play at Timmy D's that maybe I hadn't in a while, or perhaps try and beat for the first time. Overall, I have to tip my hat to the Super NES. I felt it was almost leaps and bounds ahead of the game. And in just my opinion, I felt the gaming library was superior to the Sega Genesis. Again, that's just one man's opinion.
I like it.
Well said, Kobe. Much appreciate the story. That's good.
Yeah, very cool.
We got J Rit. Wowza. This is tough. I had a Genesis during this era, so I thought I would naturally pick it, but it's the SNES. Mario and the Zelda titles alone.
Wow.
Because of games and Genesis for nostalgic reasons. Have either of you played True Lies on the Genesis? Very nice.
No, but I feel like I watched Megadan29, who is a gaming master, play True Lies on the SNES. I don't know if they're different.
That would be another one for the list. Yeah, I haven't either, so that could be a live stream. I'd have to jot that down. True Lies. Future
True
live
Lies.
stream.
Shout out to Megadan29. Love
Perfect.
that dude.
We got two more here. We got the ball guy, Mike Worley. Says, obviously, SNES over the Genesis. The Donkey Kong Country series was incredible, unlike anything we had seen up to that point. I mean, come on, Nintendo Power made a videotape about it, and it had its own soundtrack.
I might need to find this on eBay. Don't you have that?
I do. I don't think I have it close to pull out, but
That's okay.
I did get, I totally remember getting it in the mail from Nintendo Power, watching it. You can search it on YouTube.
Maybe that's what I'll do.
Donkey Kong Country promotional tape, and it's like fantastic.
I gotta watch this tonight. I think we spoke about this last time, and I meant to watch it and forgot. So
yeah, it's hilarious. It's a good time for sure. And then we'll finish up. Let's see. We got Phoenix says
Phoenix resale.
No, Phoenix.
Nah, I'm joking.
Cerberus.
Caleb, you watching our stuff? I doubt it.
Nintendo kid in the 90s, was in middle school when I got the SNES. My best friend parents were pretty uptight and would not get him video games or pretty much anything not educational.
Jeez.
So when I
became an engineer.
So when I got my SNES, he was constantly over my house playing Super Mario World. We'd be finding all the hidden passages and trying to one up each other. One day he didn't go to school because he had an appointment with the orthodontist. His teeth were pretty messed up. I
love that side note.
I often told him he had the teeth of a great white shark, just layers.
Oh my God.
But the day when I got home from school, I find him sitting on my couch with my younger brother. He had just finished beating Bowser and beat my game before I did.
Oh my gosh.
I was pretty mad, but gotta say, I missed that guy in those times.
Wonder where old Jaws is today.
That's a good story. You guys had some good stories this week for sure.
Rows of teeth. That's amazing. Dude, that's like
walking in and he's there playing your game.
There's an episode of the Goldbergs where the youngest one is about to beat Zelda, and he puts it down to go upstairs to get his camera to film it. And his brother walks in and just walks forward and gets the Triforce. She's like, I'm on fire today. Like, everything I do is perfect. Like, he just like, I beat the game and didn't even mean to, you know, like.
Right. I remember that episode.
So that must have been how your friend felt that day.
Nice. So good. So good. Sweet. Yeah, I'm trying to think. So that was all the comments from you guys. What else did I have in my notes? We did.
I think
Super
we're going to
Scope.
mention just like titles that like were only on one or the other.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I guess I did kind of already do that a little bit with like Super Scope versus the Menacer, because I guess technically you could pair Mario to Sonic.
Yeah, I
Like
guess.
who had the better launch title? Even though I guess technically Altered Beast was the original launch title.
Right.
So I'll just tell this little story real fast. I'm just gonna hijack the show real quick. So I remember when my friend TJ got his Super Nintendo, which was late September of '92, and I was at his house, and I went home, and it was all I could think about. It's like, I got to figure out a way to get this game. I wanted Super Mario World so bad. But then I started noticing more Genesis commercials, and like Sonic looked really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember selling my NES, selling a skateboard, selling some random stuff. I made about $75, and it was a Saturday morning. It was Thanksgiving break had just started. And my dad walks into the living room where I was watching cartoons on a Saturday morning. It was a rainy day, I remember. I don't know where my mom was, maybe at work. And he goes, how much money you got saved up for that Super Nintendo? And I'm like, like $75. He's like, let's go get it. And I'm like, no way. Like, because I thought it was going to take me till Christmas. Christmas was kind of my goal. Like, I got to get this by Christmas,
Right, right.
So he drives me up to Toys R Us in Greenville, South Carolina. It's now a TJ Maxx for any of those living in the area. And we walk in, and I remember the whole way there, I'm like, I don't know. I might back out and get the Genesis, because
wow,
that Sonic music, that Green Hill Zone Act 1, just was like ringing in my head. And I don't know, kind of wanted that. But I remember ultimately deciding, I'm going back and forth. Which one do I want? I think the Genesis was like $10 cheaper too. It was like $119. The Super NES
right. I
was
was wondering if the price had a difference.
But now the Genesis did have one controller, while the Super NES came with two. Like, at least the bundle I was looking at.
That you're getting, yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself how much I loved playing Super Mario World at TJ's house, and I thought to myself, if I don't go home with that game, I'm probably going to eventually be disappointed. And I still hold true to that. And I think that eventually I would have got sick of Sonic. But Mario World, I could not put down. I played it until I beat it, and I loved it. And it was the first game I ever beat, probably because you could save your progress. But I still stand behind that decision today. For me, Super Nintendo is the winner.
Right. And that brings a good point, too, where I played a ton of Super Mario World at Service Merchandise, and probably at Sears as well on their kiosk, and having the ability to save the game, because you couldn't do that with Mario 1, 2, and 3, and now
or Sonic.
And you're like, this game's so big, I can't beat it in one sitting, so I have to save. And yes, like you said, okay, Sonic, I got to go through all at once, and where Mario are like, oh, I could play 20 minutes, save the game, come back and explore more. So I feel like that probably had a good way to sway the kids. Like, okay, well, I could save my progress and do this.
And Super Mario World, I felt like, was the perfect next evolution from Super Mario 3. It just, that game just had this magic mystique about it that I don't think has ever been recreated. Super Mario World was the perfect launch title. It was incredible.
Right. And again, it's pitting that against Sonic, where if Sonic is more straightforward platformer game, in your face, fast action, where Super Mario, if you already enjoyed the other platformers on NES, now it's just that, but more.
It's so, just all the enemies, all of the new power-ups, just I don't know. I just can't say enough good things about Super Mario World. That game was incredible. Is incredible.
I was going to mention two awesome games on the Sega Genesis that probably don't get a ton of love, maybe at least more than the other.
Right.
But that's Donald Duck's Quack Shot.
A game I've always wanted to play. The box alone makes you want to grab that game.
Right. It's like basically it's like Donald Duck is like Indiana Jones, right? You're going
Looks
on
so cool.
this adventure, and it's very almost kind of reminds me of Strider, because you'll get to a point and you can't progress anymore, and it's like, okay, you need to go get this thing, and Launchpad comes, picks you up at the plane, you fly off to Transylvania, go get a key, and then you could come back to Duckburg and then progress a little bit more. And
That's very similar to the original Donald Duck game, or Scrooge McDuck, DuckTales, because he picks you up in Launchpad picks you up on a helicopter there too.
Right. You can choose to leave the level early or whatever in the NES.
Yeah.
And you get this cool plunger gun that like sticks to the wall, and then you could climb up.
Like platform up it.
Right.
That's cool.
Super fun games. Definitely check that one out. And then there were two. One was a little bit better than the other, but the Mickey Mouse games on there, Castle of Illusion was the better one. And then they also had, I'm trying to remember what the other one was. Mickey Mouse. It
Forest
escapes
of
me.
Illusion? Or is that the same thing?
I'll have to look at. No, it wasn't. It didn't have illusion in the title. I think I have that one over the other one, but that one again was like a fun game where you're going around these kind of like spooky atmosphere.
Yeah,
because it's like a haunted castle essentially.
Right.
Let's see. I'm looking up in my.
I'm trying to think
my
if there's
app.
any other standout titles. I remember playing Batman on the Genesis. That was kind of cool, and Batman Returns.
Yeah. Do I have it here? Here we go. M's. Oh no, maybe I didn't list it.
Road Rash was cool too.
Oh, World of Illusion, starring
World of
Mickey
Illusion.
Mouse and Donald Duck.
Okay.
Was the other one there.
That one wasn't as good.
Not as good as Castle of Illusion.
Okay.
Definitely check that one out. What else did I put? That was it on those.
Okay.
I did want to showcase, we were going to maybe start a new segment to encourage you guys to comment a little bit more, to showcase a comment we had from episode 61. This was from Nathan, and he said, my favorite find has to be about 15 years ago. I went to Goodwill by my house and got a brand new copy of Sonic CD on Sega CD for $4 with the nice plastic wrap around with no holes or anything, and the old Target price tag on it, and with the hang tab.
Dang.
I had lots of good finds at the Goodwill back in the day, but I hear they are horrible eBay pricing nowadays.
They have like their own website. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was from our episode of like epic game hunting stories last week. So wow. Yeah, I like now, like I feel like it's transitioned where you find games now. I almost prefer to have the sticker on it, right? From like, oh, sticker from Target, and you're like, that kind of holds some nostalgia. Where early retro game collecting, I feel like there's tons of videos like how to remove these stickers, how to get these stickers off,
right?
Get these rental stickers off, clean the game up.
Yeah,
like, no, I kind of want to leave that stuff on there. So
it kind of tells the story, you know?
Right. Finding the receipts.
Yep.
That like if you find a receipt from when the game was bought, that's like a throwback.
Yep. I kept a couple of receipts for my Xbox games. I still find them in the case.
Nice. Yeah, certainly good throwback. Yeah, it sums it up. It's a pretty good longer episode of pitting Sega versus Super Nintendo.
Leave in the comments below, who do you choose for this ultimate war?
Who do you think won the console war? Join us next week where N64 and Sega Saturn. I don't know. I didn't have a Saturn, so I can't even chime into any of that.
Yeah, same here.
Blast. But yeah, we hope you guys appreciate watching. You can check out the weekly warpipe.com. We got episodes on there, merch. You can pick up a weekly Warpipe mug that me and Jay have right here. There's stickers, magnets, buttons, a whole bunch of fun stuff there. And again, you can always give us a call on the show, 949-682-9277, and catch our other episode, Warpipe Wednesday, every Wednesday at 7 a.m. A little bit different format, but you could always catch me and Jay every Saturday at 7 a.m. here on the weekly Warpipe.
Always a good time.
As always, I'm Russ Lyman, and keep your world fun bit by bit.